Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional. Today, we're brought to you by Time to Pet and our Patreon supporters. What is motivating you to excel? And how are you navigating the challenges of your business? For some, it has that internal motivation of having enough money to do things or making sure that you are doing a service that you would want done for you. For others, it takes being fired to make it click. Joette White, owner of Park City's Pet Sitter, joins the show today to talk about her journey from being fired to running the business. Joette stresses the importance of relying on others and trusting others, even when we may struggle with that ourselves. Let's get started.
Joette White, Park City's Pet Sitter is the company that I own, and we're in Dallas, Texas. I got into this business many, many moons ago. I don't have a business background per se, but I love customer service, love animals, and it just was a natural fit when I started working for the company. I have employees, about 35 currently, and we do, of course, in-home pet sitting, daily dog walks, pet taxis, whatever our clients need, and we really focus on that social, emotional, and physical well-being of the animal when we're there. So, what else can I tell you?
Well, so you got into pet sitting in the 90s, is that right? What led you into that?
Well, I was trying to pursue an acting career at the time, and I wanted something that gave me a flexible schedule. And a friend of mine was telling me about how much she loved the pet sitting job that she had. I'm like, oh, I love animals. How hard can that be? And so I said, hook me up. So I went and met with the owner and got hired immediately, and actually got fired a couple weeks later.
Oh.
Yeah, like my first month in, I get fired because I think I'd slept through a new client meeting and I wasn't communicating as well as she'd liked. And she said, this is really not working for me. And I said, oh God. And I realized I liked it. I'm like, I really want to do this. I said, give me another opportunity. And so from that moment on, I took it very seriously, and here I am today. So, yeah.
Wow, that's quite the story. I've haven't gotten fired from this position.
Now I'm the owner of my own corporation. Yeah, it's funny because I worked for her for 4 years, and I was a full-time pet sitter for 3 of those years. And then that 4th year, I started working for her in the office. She never took time off. She was one of those people. Again, she started the business out of a passion for animals, and it just took off and just consumed her life. And so we were very like-minded in how we treated clients and the staff. And at that time, she had independent contractors. But I loved it, and the opportunity. She decided she wanted to move to San Francisco and do something new, and took about 6 months to figure out funding and how we were going to do it. And we agreed on a price, and I have no regrets. And so it's worked out really well. And it's been 24 years that I've owned it, 29 since I've worked for it. So, and yeah.
Well, so talk about that journey of having been fired to purchasing the business. I mean, really, what got you that serious and that into the work that was being done?
Well, I think for me, I was at that time I was my boyfriend, who's my husband now. So that was a new relationship, and I think I was just kind of trying to figure out what am I doing in my life. And at that point, I think I was probably about 32-ish in age, and I just once I realized that. Because she was not going to put up with anything. So if I wasn't serious and I wasn't going to, do what she needed me to do, and I was, back then there wasn't really. I had a cell phone, I think, back then, but it wasn't a big thing to have. It was, wasn't a main part of your communication. So it was just regular phone calls. And if you can't rely on somebody, we know in this day and age with all the technology we have, even if there's any kind of anything, it's like, okay, we have to know that we're going to be showing up and doing what you're supposed to do and so forth. And so when I was shocked that she was firing me, I'm thinking, I think it was probably a little further. It's probably about a month in. And something just clicked with me. I really liked it. I knew that I could do it much better. I knew what I had, and I needed to get serious or walk. So I just decided to get serious. And I never knew that I'd end up buying the company, and that wasn't in my mind at that time. I just knew I liked the flexibility of it. I enjoyed the outside and being with the animals, and it was easy for me because I love making people happy. And so yeah, so she said, "Okay, I'll give you another chance," and she did, and so and we're still friends to this day. So
Oh,
in fact,
cool.
I saw her just a few months ago for the first time in a really long time. So.
Oh,
So it's neat for her to see kind of how it's come. It was interesting trying to evaluate the business though, because we both were, I like I'll pay whatever for it because I know what it can do, and I
yeah.
saw how I had grown the 4 years that I was there, and it was just like insane. And but getting funding was not easy, So at the time, it was really lucky that one, I was a woman, which was helpful, and I got an SBA loan at the time. So, but I just, found the right person to help me work through it. Had to work together a business plan. It's my one and only business plan I think I've ever made.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and she ended up funding half or taking half the loan personally as well. But I got that all paid off. I paid that off pretty quickly. So
Wow.
the business was generating a good amount of revenue. It was definitely a lifestyle change for me when I took that over. So
Yeah. Well,
but yeah,
we all do kind of encounter those moments in our life where we have that decision of, do I get serious about this, or is it time for me to walk away? And I love how, you just kind of laid that out of,
yeah,
I was kind of, personally, it's kind of that you get smacked in the face and all of a sudden you go, whoa, wait, what? It's kind of that wake up call of going, okay, like
yeah.
what do I do now? Is it, really, notice the grindstone and I've got to work. I've got to take this as seriously as I'd like to, because I think it's fun and I'm really getting a lot out of it. Or do I need to try and find that other path and go somewhere else, right? And that is something that we all kind of encounter with from time to time too.
Yeah, yeah, and who would have known that that decision would lead to where I am today? Because had I just said, "Well, screw it, I don't need this job," or "I'll, fine," I could have had a bad attitude about it, but I didn't. I approached it with a humble attitude, and
Mm.
because I also know I don't like for people to think that I'm not a hardworking person, and so forth, And I knew I was being a bit flaky, and I didn't care for that in myself either. So, yeah, so good choice.
so, so when you were presented with that option or that opportunity to buy the business, as far as your leading decision, was it because you wanted to see the business continue, because you saw yourself in that leadership role, or kind of what was it about that opportunity that you knew you had to take on?
Um, it- I have always felt that I would do something in my life. I didn't go to college. I don't have a 4-year degree. I have an associate's degree in applied arts for acting. So I didn't really have the drive to, and I was still struggling trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I just felt such a connection with that. It was such an easy role for me. Um, as an actress, and I just loved it, and I thought, man, I can just really take this to a whole nother level. I already had ideas on what I was interested in doing, and I also knew that it would change my life, financially as well. And
Wow.
so it was a struggle because it took about 6 months before we could, really get it worked out. And so there were periods of time that I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out, and I just could feel that heartbreak about to happen, and but I was determined, and I'm pretty much that way in anything that I do. You tell me no, and I'm going to find a way to work around it. So, and it may take me a while, but I'm going to get what I want in the end. So, yeah, it's been a huge blessing though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question though?
Yeah, well, as far as just you saw, like, oh no, that's what you just saw yourself in that role, basically, of, you knew, okay, this is a huge opportunity. It's not just an option, that's almost where I have to go at this point.
Yeah, and for her, I know she wanted it to go to someone that cared as much as she did about it. And so, what also made that transition such an easy transition was because the clients knew me, the staff knew me, and so the SBA was like, well, it's a lot less of a risk for you to
Mhm.
lose the staff and lose the clients, where if someone new came in and bought it. And I bought it for $310,000. So I have no problem sharing that information.
Okay,
And that was a lot back in 96.
still a lot,
And
Joette.
yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, for somebody who didn't have, much to, I was living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
It was, and looking back, sure, I overpaid for it. It was making 300,000 that year. I paid literally 100% of what the gross revenue was. And that's not something I would ever do again. And I haven't. I've bought 2 other companies since then, and I have not.
Okay.
I have not done that way. So, but yeah, it's fairly interesting, but I don't regret a moment of it. It has quadrupled itself since then, and um, made so many changes. I tried to really get involved in NAPS was the first association I got involved in, because I wanted to be able to make change in the industry. And it's come a long way over the years, but yeah, I just knew. And for her, it was, she thought, well, I could look outside and see if somebody else is interested in buying it and so forth. But it was a win-win for both of us, so, and just, how do we make it work? So.
Well, especially when you've got all those ideas and you have coming from your acting background, like there's a very creative, like you can see things that don't exist, right? And you can kind of
Yeah.
make them happen. I think that's so cool about your story. Like you're already going, wow, like here's an option, here's an opportunity, here's what I can do, here's how I can make this. And we do find that in times of our business going, I need to make something that's never been there before, right?
Yeah.
And that is such a critical aspect of what it means to run a healthy business for the long term as well.
Well, I doubted myself in the beginning. I thought, well, if this doesn't work out, you could always, because everybody said, just start your own. Don't spend that kind of money. Just start your own. I was scared to death to start over, or, to start it. Because I'm like, I didn't start this one. I know how to run it. I know everything about it. But I was so scared in the early days to think that I didn't have enough confidence in myself to start it from the ground up. Looking back, I could have easily done that, but I also wasn't the type of person that was going to try to steal her clients or do anything like that. So that was an ethical thing, that the line that I didn't want to cross either.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that was it's one of those things that, again, at that time, no one would know where I'd be today. And so, yeah.
Well, you mentioned you've purchased 2 other businesses since then. What kind of lessons did you pull forward other than the not paying 100% of the gross profits? Now when you look at those opportunities,
Right.
how does that math changed, or how does your vision change now whenever we've acquired 2 other different ones?
Yeah, one of them was just basically a client list. That was a
Oh,
really kind of a no-brainer. But the other one, I actually got their staff, and they were ready to exit. They had been in business for about 10 years, and they approached me, and the timing was just right. And they also, I've talked to multiple people about them wanting to sell their businesses. Most people are too emotionally attached to it, and it's making this money, so I should get this. And I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, you're selling a client list.
yeah.
And if your clients don't know you, know the person, they've only known you, and if your pricing isn't aligned to what my pricing is. So I've learned a lot of those things, to really look at those things, because when you make that change, what's the reason that people are going to leave? It's going to be because, you're charging way more than these people are, or they're not going to have their same person, or your rules and regulations are different. And so, really looking for people that are aligned well with what we're doing already. So that makes that transition a little easier.
Hmm.
And then planning some sort of an exit for the original owner, and them bringing you in, so that they see that handoff, and that you work together for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've learned something each and every time I've done it. So, and when I bought the company that I was talking about, it was 2017, 16. I can't remember. It's been a minute.
Sure.
I had already used the software platform, so I was familiar with that. Our pricing was fairly in line. And then the staff was independent contractors. I knew I was going to have to convert them to employees. So again, we planned out how we were going to do that, how we were going to speak to the existing staff, and talk to them about being an employee. Actually, they make more money than an independent contractor. And I don't think people really recognize that. If they don't really know, they think, oh, you're going to withhold taxes, I'm going to make less money. Not true. We're going to be paying part of your tax for you that you have to pay as an independent contractor. So,
Yeah.
there's definitely some benefits to going through this process more than once. And I'm always extra cautious each time I even think about going into that type of thing, because even after I bought the company, the second one, I learned very quickly. We did our due diligence. We got our tax returns. We went, it took us a couple of months to get everything lined out. And I still found out, I was smart because, well, I had smart coaching. The girl that I was working with, she said, don't just buy the assets, don't buy the liability. And so make sure that everything's worded that way, because what happened, I found out later, he had owed a lot of money to a lot of people, and they came knocking on the door, but because of my agreement was airtight, I was like, I didn't buy that part. I only bought this part. So, I saved myself. And he was also underpaying his staff and overpaying, charging his clients. So there was definitely an upside down that I had to right size. But at the end of the day, it was well worth it. Again, it worked out really well. I can't complain. Kept about half of that revenue that he was making, and we had planned kind of for that. So it worked out really well.
Isn't it interesting how after your first acquisition, right, your first purchase, where it was kind of just this like, I don't know what's going on, but I know I've got to have this because it's headlong. And now each subsequent one, it's like, as you've learned more, right, the caution guard kind of sets up, and we get a little bit more. And how that can be real. That's because we've got something to protect, right? Now we have the knowledge of the danger that's really out there, and how we then have to balance that with also not allowing that to inhibit us from still taking risks and still taking chances in our business too.
Yeah. Oh, I've done plenty of things that I regret, spent money or done make choices, but again, I always try not to repeat that pattern again and again and again, if it's, the wrong path. And I tend to try to do what's familiar and do what's comfortable and so forth. But I also know that I've got to push outside that comfort zone, and I've got to take some risk for things to change and to continue to grow and to be, at the top of our game. I mean, that's just like any business. So,
right. Yeah, but it is, again, that going, why is it's easy to do those things that are comfortable, because we know them really well. Like, we know those inside and out. We know those good questions to ask. We know who to reach out for help when we've seen this and done this before. But not being afraid to go, well, this is just a little bit outside. So that's probably still within the scope of what I can comprehend and understand and still take on, and not end up owing lots of money to somebody.
Right.
Well, and so you talked about your transition in the early days of being in the field, doing pet sitting, then transitioning into the office and doing more administrative work. When you made that transition, how did that impact your view of what it meant to run a business?
In the very beginning, I was so focused on trying to make everybody happy, which you can't. And so I was trying to do as much pet sitting as I possibly could, supporting the staff that were there, and also to try to grow the business. And at some point, something's going to give. You can't do it all. And so I realized early on that I needed to start figuring out how I was going to get out of pet sitting altogether. I could not really focus on the business, and I loved it, but I was never like my top pet sitters now. I was never as good as they were. I mean, I was good. I just took really good care of the clients, and I did all the things I'm supposed to do. But I also knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I don't want to demean that in any way. Without our staff, there is no business. They are my number one asset. But I also knew that if I was really going to focus on this, and because I had no background in business and I had no background with any of this, marketing or any of that stuff, I'm like, I need to really kind of focus on that. It was hard initially because everyone has those clients that they think no one else but you can take care of them. So you have to have that conversation. And it was about building, the relationships with the clients for them to understand and trust that they were going to be taken care of as if I was taking care of them. Mm-hmm. And then on the staff side as well, trying to transition them to a different type of leadership, and also setting office hours and different things that I did because she had no boundaries, the lady I bought it from.
Yeah.
And people get used to that, and they think they can call you at 10:30 at night to, for a visit the following morning, and you're going to answer the phone live, So, there was just, a lot of things that I knew that I needed to do, and in order to do that, I needed to be able to step away. And I every once in a blue moon, I'll step in and help, or I will go and go to a situation, kind of evaluate it, or do a key lockout for a staff member or something. But I don't pet sit. I haven't pet sit regularly for quite some time.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Dan from NYC Pooch has this to say.
Time to Bet has been a total game changer for us. It's helped us streamline many aspects of our operation, from scheduling and communication to billing and customer management. We actually tested other pet sitting softwares in the past, but these other solutions were clunky and riddled with problems. Everything in Time to Pet has been so well thought out. It's intuitive, feature-rich, and it's always improving.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. Well, it is that decision of going, where are my strengths, right? Where am I most needed? And that every business owner has that decision that they've got to make of where does my time, talents, and attention need to be directed? And it kind of shifts, doesn't it, over time of kind of ebbs and flows of where we need to focus and what we need to do and how we need to be connected and ultimately deciding, how do we want to function? What is our true passion in running our business? Is it the administrative? Is it the hiring? Is it the all of that stuff, the paperwork stuff? Is it the field work? Is it taking care of the pets? And that's one of the beauties of working for yourself, is you get to kind of figure out how that functions with you.
Yeah. But you can also kill yourself that way too. Because it's the same thing. It's like if you're this solo pet sitter and you're doing all of that and you're doing all the admin stuff and you're like, oh, I can't get a break and can't get a vacation. But it's such a huge, you feel that huge risk of hiring somebody else because, oh my gosh, are they going to deliver? So when I took over the business and I made that transition out of pet sitting, I thought to myself, okay, well, how now? What's the next step? Because now I can only get to so far in this level. I can only do so much. I can only manage so many staff and hire and do all the things that I need to do. So now I've got to trust somebody to come in and help me with that. Ooh, I struggled with that for quite some time. And I hired internally. Some of my staff I just promoted up or tried to hire some people outside. I didn't really know what I wanted or what I needed, I guess, because I'm a bit of a control freak and I like to micromanage, which is not good when you're trying to really grow a company and let people grow themselves. So I just was like, okay, well, again, I had to learn the hard way a few times, had some bad experiences. And then I had a part-time pet sitter who I liked, and she came and worked in my home office for a little while and part-time there. And she was, I liked her a lot. She was reliable and she was knowledgeable about many things. And I got pregnant and I was like, oh, well, how hard can this be? I'll have a baby. I'm at home. I mean, how hard can it be to run a company and have a baby and do all the things? I don't need additional help. We're good with what we got. 2 weeks after I had the baby, and she tried to tell me. 2 weeks after having my first child, I said, "Oh, can you please work full time and can you work from your house?" Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest change for me at that point. That made me realize somebody else can do this and I need somebody else and I need to be able to let go of things. And I micromanaged her quite a bit. She was in that role for 11 years. We were like an old married couple, but and we're still friends as well. So to this day, but it was one of those things that I had to learn. I had to learn the hard way. I had to wait for something almost not catastrophic, but something big to happen in my life. And it was the same thing again when my dad passed away in 2019. I had to go back and forth to Arizona, where my dad was, for about 6 months before he passed and after he passed. So I was here half a week, gone half a week. It was the very first time that I truly let go and let my admin team just do whatever they needed to do. I wasn't making decisions. I wasn't available mentally, emotionally, physically, and was just blown away about how it survived. Oh, wow. And I've learned over the time too, sometimes I'm the cog in the wheel and I need to move aside, so yeah, good stuff. Learn, but it's had to be the hard way, Jenner. There's something big has had to happen.
Right. Well, and you said that phrase, let people grow themselves. And I love how you said that, because we often, we have sometimes as business owners, we have a hard time understanding the difference between micromanaging versus holding people to high standards. And we think the only way to have the high standards is to micromanage. So how do you walk that line now of not compromising on what people do without the micromanaging and that stuff on top?
It's funny because I think it's been in the last, I would say probably the last maybe 6 to 8 years that I've really started to recognize that, especially the last 6 years, because it took me a while to really see that I was kind of in the way of these people actually being able to grow and do what they needed to do. I had moments of that with different people, but I think it ended up being, again, getting good counsel from people around me, other people in the industry that I have friends, coaches and stuff that I've worked with. I just I realized if you don't give people the opportunity to fail, then they can't grow. So I had to be okay with them sending out an email. Maybe I didn't think the wording was quite right, or saying this or that, or letting a visit get missed. That was the most horrible thing on the planet. The worst case scenario. But you don't forget. I remember the very first time that happened to me when I was working for Jackie, the lady who started the company, and I literally missed a visit for a whole weekend for a dog. I didn't get it scheduled, and so it was Friday night through Sunday afternoon. So it was a full weekend. And I remember when she came back, and the client, was livid. Obviously, she said, "You need to call the client, and you need to explain what happened, and you need to take responsibility for that." I was like, "Oh my gosh," mortified. And luckily, the dog was fine, and there was an accident or two in the house, but still, it was. And luckily, it wasn't a longer visit.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that never happened again, because that hit me so hard that I had that happened on my watch. So sometimes you have to let those people make those mistakes, just like kids. You got to, which is hard, because I want everything to be perfect and everyone to be happy, and it's just not reality. And then you also kind of have to meet them where they are in their life. So sometimes people aren't willing or ready to grow, or just and then those who are, man, I've seen some people really shine. People that I've hired that I'm like, oh well, I think I'm desperate right now, and I'm and then have just blown me away. Or people that I've hired that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this person, I want to be their friend, and have just not been a good fit at all. So just trying to pay attention. And again, it's important for me for people to feel like this is not just a job. I'm sure it is for many, but we also want them to succeed in their personal life. And maybe they do this for a season and they move on, or maybe they do it, like for a lot of my staff, I've had 15, 20 plus years, so you just never know.
Yeah, and that letting them fail is so hard, right? Because I know Megan and I have had that same discussion of, do we call now? Is now when we call? Do we call now? We gotta call. It's like, no, hold, wait. Because on some instances, it's right. They need to feel that. They also need to know that they are the ones responsible for this action. And that if they know that Colin and Megan are always going to be calling them going, hey, it looks like you haven't clocked in yet. Everything okay? Like that doesn't build a good, independent, focused staff, right? That builds a codependent staff on you to then now you have to continue to micromanage because they're not putting the systems in or taking that responsibility in their own lives.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's it exactly, because, and I think that's the part that I missed early on, is they don't trust themselves. If you don't trust them, then they start doubting themselves, and so they question everything they do, and they're like, and I would get irritated, going, why are they asking me this? I've told them this a million times. It's because I didn't let them follow through and just do it and make a choice. So now I really focus on, if they come to me with a question or a problem, I'll say, well, what do you think? What are your, so, because I really want them to think outside the box, or I'll say, hey, you remember that example we had in an email? Oh yeah, I'll look back at that. If you want me to look at it, I'm happy to, or whatever it might be. But I also recognize too, if I make myself too available, that also makes it easy for them to lean on me. So I've also kind of had to dial back. It's like, I trust your judgment. You got this. And most of the time it works out. And if it doesn't, again, we're going to make mistakes. We're all human. And I have to be able to trust, just like the people going into the homes, I have to be able to trust that the people in the office are doing what they need to do. And I also have to give a little grace when they have life that happens. And I also need to be able to draw the line in the sand and let people go when it's not the right fit. And that's the hard part. I love to give people opportunities to heck, I got fired, and so I'm a big, give that second chance, so
yeah, it is important to have that fine line and know, like, because sometimes we have to go from I'm the owner, I'm the boss, whatever that is, to like, I'm kind of a mentor slash life coach now, and I've got to figure out like what tools do they need? Where are they in their life? What is that walk like for them? Can they still meet these requirements or whatever that looks like? And that is never a fun position to be in, right?
Yeah.
And but it is that, because sometimes we even have to do that for ourselves, don't we? Of going, am I living a healthy and balanced life right now? Am I mentally okay to be taking this stuff on? And and making that judgment call to then now I have to say no to myself, or I have to say no to this person who I just brought on.
Yeah, again, another lesson I wish I'd learned early on. But I also think too, I think certain things happen in your life at different periods, and I could go and dwell on the regret, but it's wasting my time. Why am I, and then trust me, I've had those moments where I'm wallowing in my own self-pity and thinking, oh my gosh, it's all falling, crumbling around me. But I try not to live in that for very long. And sometimes that's reaching out to friends or prayer or whatever it might be, because I don't want to live there for a long period of time. I've even got to the point where at some point I'm like, I might actually need some anxiety medication. I'm like, I'm not, it's not that I'm anti that, but I've never taken anything in my entire life.
Right.
And, so sometimes it's, there's something else going on with you. You can't just force yourself to be a certain way. And maybe you're, going through the changes of life and menopause and things that I've gone through, your chemical makeup changes and stuff like that. So there's all types of help out there, and there's all types of opportunities for people to grow and to let go. But it's not an easy thing. And I'm not a fan of change necessarily, but I recognize that change brings growth generally if you figure out a way to embrace it. And I also have enough life history at 57 to look back and go, well, I survived that. I survived that. I survived that. Oh my gosh, all these things that in the moment I thought I was not going to survive. So
Yes. Right. We've all had, again, where I just can still remember like things that happened in high school where you're just like, that was the end of the world then. It was terrible. I didn't feel like anybody understood me. I didn't feel like anybody knew or could relate to me. Meanwhile, my parents, my grandma, and were just kind of looking at me like, yeah, buddy, like A, we've all been there, and B, get ready, right? Because things are going to happen. And but having those close partnerships, those mentors, those coaches, those community members who can say, yep, look, not downplaying how you're feeling in the moment, but also we've been there, done that, got the corny t-shirt. Come on, we're here to help you.
Exactly. Oh man, and I wish it was that way. I wish that every day I woke up and I had that positive attitude. I don't want to mislead people and think, oh, all the time I'm just, because it's not. It's a choice you make every day. It's like being married. It's a choice you make to work on that relationship. It's a choice you make to work, and this is a relationship business that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And so, and there's times that I'm more of a visionary, not an integrator that breaks things down. I like the big picture stuff, but breaking it down and making it happen, I kind of can get lost there.
Sure.
So having good people in your life, and there's times that those people they're like, oh, I wish I had some advice for you. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. But still talking about it, and trying not to dwell in the negative, and realizing, is this really what I'm manifesting in my mind, or am I making a choice to be, feeling this way, or to be offended, or to be, and sometimes there's nothing you can do but wait. And other times there's action steps you can take, and then I have to own what I don't do. And there's a lot of that. So.
Well, and what that does is it helps arrest those feelings of not necessarily instability, but helplessness, when we can come in and we can take agency back over and go, no, like you said, today's a choice. I'm choosing to continue my business operations. I'm choosing this, and I'm choosing to do this, and I get to do these things. And it's more about us going, no, here's my little loci of control, what I can impact, what I actually have control over. And so kind of acknowledging that too, of going, nope, here it is. And it doesn't extend very far, but at least in my little bubble here, this is what I can control.
Yeah. Well, when the whole pandemic happened and everything, and kind of, the world fell apart or whatever you want to, I of course, I went through lots of different emotions like everybody else did, but I also took it as the opportunity to see what positive I could get from it, and it took me a while to realize that, but I realized I don't have to kill myself for this. I can say no. And it was empowering. It was like, it's like I knew this. I knew, and why am I worried about pleasing everybody all the time? It's not realistic. What other industry does works as hard to do, and it's not like you have to compromise necessarily on what you're providing or what you're doing for people, but you also have to set boundaries. And so we really kind of looked at, wow, we don't want to be a jack in a box where we have all these different types of things on a menu. We want to really specialize in what we do, and let's go back to the basics. And so we kind of, what is the core thing of what we do? And that's what we need to do, and just do it really well, like we know it, and it's easy, and we love it. It's much easier to be passionate about something that you enjoy, that you do. And so the negative things that come with any type of job or role are less negative as a whole, because you're enjoying it, you're getting something else out of it other than you're just showing up and being a robot and whatever.
Well, and after coming up on 30 years as a business with Park Cities, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that the business has. And this is something that I've been trying to mull over in my brain as we've been in business longer and longer, of there are experiences that the business has had that Megan and I couldn't experience by ourselves, because staff are learning things. We're encountering a lot more different things. And I know that that's something that you lean on as as a true selling point of why go with Park Cities, because of that bulk of institutional knowledge, of experiences that the company has, right? No one employee has been there for almost 30 years, but the culmination of everything. And I was curious, how do you try and get your hands around that to capture and to store, and what do you, because with over 30 employees out there doing stuff, there's a lot of experiences to kind of keep track of.
It's so true. And we had, before the pandemic, we had 45, and we've always done a large amount of revenue with a small team. That's not the norm. So I have a friend her company, she's got 60 people, and they're doing about the same revenue. So, but it's just structured differently. But we also recognize too, we had to have more flexibility, and times have changed. To try to answer that question, trying to wrap my head around it. Yeah, it's almost been, well, isn't this how it is? I mean, no, it's not. I found out, and I'm just I'm a people person. So it's easier, I think, for me to try to relate to people. And so, again, I can try to look beyond just the fact that this person works for me or this person is a client, and dig a little deeper into their world if they let me. But I mean, when we're selling our service, I've never felt like I've had to sell this ever, because I'm confident in what we provide. It's not rocket science, but at the same time, reliability and that consistency, where you can get it, and you're not going to have 100%. Each person I have in somebody's home is a different human being. They have their strengths and their weaknesses, but predominantly they should have the client should have the same experience. Making sure that people that they do have some sort of a passion for animals, and they're doing this, because you hire the wrong people, and the minute they start complaining about scoop and litter and whatever else, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of a big part of the job. It's a neat thing. I love having to look back all those years, and I'm super transparent with my staff, with my clients. And I think that is a big thing as well. Again, it's a relationship business, both sides. So I have clients that have been here since I've been here, and that word of mouth is priceless. That's the best marketing that we could ever have. We didn't market for a very long time because of that. And it's hard to keep those relationships always, thriving, because again, as I would grow, I was very in tune with all my staff early on when I had 12, 13, 14 people. That was easy. Then I had kids, and then, the company grew, and then, it became such a, almost like a burden that I felt like I was failing everybody because I wasn't available all the time for whatever they might need. And, but I had to be recognized again. That's when I needed additional help. It's been an incredible journey. I can't think of anything else that I would want to do than what I'm doing. But at the same time, I also try to figure out, how can I help other people trying to pull that out of themselves, where they're not stuck in something that they absolutely dread and hate, because life's just too short. So I don't know if that answered any of that question or not.
Well, well, I think it starts trying to get at that idea of just of the people, right? It's a people business. It's a people business because we're serving people. It's a people business because there are people involved in it, and to rely on their strengths to support them in their weaknesses, to learn from one another and to grow together. So when on a website or when you're talking to a potential client, to say, we have over 30 years, or however many years of experience, that's speaking to the fact that we're always learning and new things are coming up. So while we've seen a thing, right? It's always when something comes up in the business and a staff member comes to me and is like, have you ever experienced this before? I feel like I'm running back to the archives and blowing the dust off of a box and be like, well, but 11 years ago, now sit down, everybody. We're going to tell a story, right? But those become so invaluable as a company, right? Like it really does.
Yeah. And like I said, especially the mistakes that I've made, because they resonate with me and they stick in my mind. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go back there again. But when it comes to those staff members, when I'm interviewing people for, and I still do some of that from time to time, I immediately let the person know, I'm not looking for you to fit in a box because you're you. I'm going to try to meet you where you are. If you, these qualifications you meet, and maybe your availability isn't what I ideally would like. I mean, because back in the day, if you didn't have full availability, I didn't hire you. So part-time and full-time was just about how many visits you took, but you needed to be available all the time. And that's just not realistic in this day and age. So I still find that person from time to time, but I just really try to put them at ease and let them know, you might be great at technology or you might not, or you might be great with this. And, so again, I'm going to try to pull out what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are without making them feel like they're a bad person because they're not this. I want to play on their strengths so they recognize what's valuable and so that they can see that in themselves and, and build that confidence. And sometimes you have really young people that, are not confident or really old people that are not confident. So it doesn't matter where they are in age or what generation they are. People are people at the end of the day. And if you can find a way to relate to them and put them at ease. And I don't like people to think, oh, I'm the owner of the company. Here she comes. Oh, I want people to feel like, hey, there's Joette, that goofy girl, so, but yet they know I mean business. So,
sure.
So, we get stuff done. So, but that we're all human because I probably overshare, I think, with my, especially my admin staff, because I am that person that just wants to be kind of an open book. And sure, it's burned me a few times for sure. And I know that you can't prevent that from happening. But I also am quick to cut the cord a lot quicker than I used to be, where I used to be being held hostage by this because I have these clients that are relying on me. I got to the point where I'm like, well, if I have to let somebody go because it's poisonous to the culture, then I have to let that person go, and I'll do the best I can to take care of the clients, or I'll find them an alternative. But I'm not going to kill myself and take on that negative, because it affects the entire team, whether you realize it or not. I mean, it really does.
We are also brought to you by our amazing Patreon supporters. Your help allows us to bring these insightful conversations, expert tips, and the latest in the pet care industry. Join our community at patreon.com/psconfessional and get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and much more, including a monthly Zoom get-together. Your support keeps us going, and we couldn't do it without you. Again, that's patreon.com/psconfessional. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Yeah, you mentioned about the not coming in and making them fit into a box. We hired somebody recently, and technology was not their strong suit. And I remember sitting with them and going, "Is this going to be a problem, Colin?" And I was like, "Well, it might be, but we've got a few steps that we can do, and we're going to work with this to see where the problem is and how we can make this best fit." Because this person is just so passionate about pets, like they really just want to. They have such a servant's heart that I was like, I want to work with that. I want to work with that part. Okay, now we're going to come over here and we're going to put some tutorials about the technology, and we're going to talk about that and like what this means and everything, and we're going to work on that. We're going to give that a chance. And if that seriously doesn't work out, like, okay, we're going to have that tough conversation. But let's start with where you are. And I just remember that. Is this going to be a problem, Colin? Like, well, maybe, but we're going to give it a little bit of time.
It depends, and that's the thing too. This is an opportunity for them to try to step up and stretch out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I like people to be proactive, so if I see that, hey, I went online and I Googled this to sit down, but oh my gosh, that's fantastic, because a lot of people don't take those opportunities, and there's so much information and so much, and my husband is not techie at all. I mean, he barely texts, and he doesn't barely does email. He just does. It's not his thing. He's not on any social. He doesn't like any of it, but he can learn it. If he really, really wants to, it might be harder for him because he's dyslexic and other things. But if you really want something bad enough, you figure out how to get past that hurdle. Or is it something that can be, can there be an accommodation for this or for that?
Yeah.
You don't want to get into a ton of that because then you've got all these different things you're working around. But sometimes there's it's a right reason to do that, So it just depends on, again, what are you willing to do on as a business owner. I try to stay away from trying to be doing things out of desperate mindset, because I've made a lot of bad choices that way early on. But sometimes you're like, okay, am I doing this because I'm desperate, or am I doing this because I really think it's going to be a potentially great, a time investment or whatever it might be.
Right.
So yeah, I just try to check with myself or check with somebody else, because I can tell you that my staff will tell me, you don't get to hire on immediately. I used to hire. I'm like, I like you. I'm hiring you right now. And they're like, you have to give it a beat before, so, because I get excited about people too so easily. So yeah.
Well, and you've mentioned a few times along your business journey, you've brought on help, and I know that's in reference to sometimes growing the team, growing the dog walkers, the pet sitters. It's also been, I think, talking about bringing on different people in different management and administrative roles to business. I did want you to kind of talk about what that process of bringing on managers has been like, and how you've been working with them to kind of take over some of those responsibilities.
Yeah, that's been definitely been a challenge as well, because it's one of those things that, man, again, giving up that control. I've not been a great person when it comes to articulating what I need, or what or really drilling down to what do I need? I mean, I know what my weaknesses are. Well, if that's the great place to start, so what am I not good at? Then let's get somebody who's good at that. And, so I have found those fits, but trying to figure out how do you find them? Are you placing a certain type of ad, or are you, keywords, or are you, there's, people will tell you all different ways to do it. I've tried creative, fun writing to, very just kind of sterile, job advertisements. I finally kind of locked into, and actually it's just been in the last year and a half. I'm doing EOS. I don't know if you're familiar with the Entrepreneur operating system,
Okay.
And it's phenomenal. It gives me the structure that I don't have, and it breaks it down very simple, and it really focuses on your accountability chart, and getting people in the right place, right seats, the right fit, elevating and delegating. And having regular meetings, and really focusing on, these are the 3 things you're going to work on for the next 90 days. And if I'm working on this one thing and it's not, going towards the one of these 3 then that I'm spending my time where it shouldn't be. So and recognizing, like, for me, I'm at the point where we're hiring another person to come in and kind of run the company, because I am, as I find as I get older, one, I really, again, like to focus on the bigger picture. I want to go and explore. I want to go to other people's businesses. I want to, go to seminar. I just like to figure out what's new, what's out there. Being at the Texas Pet Sitter Conference the last couple of years was so wonderful. I mean, a lot of fresh people out in the industry that really look at this as a business. And so it's been super exciting. So I want to spend my time doing those things, and then have somebody else do the implementing and the accountability and that type of thing. And I recognize that's because that's not my strength. I will get excited about something and start something and get going with it. And then I see something else. I'm like, ooh, I want to do that. So your team starts to doubt you after a while. They're like, hey, I thought we were doing this. Oh, 6 months later, we're doing this. Oh, okay. Well, what are we doing? So leadership is and consistency with your team is such an important thing. And I'm at the point where I have such a good, solid team that I know I got to kind of step aside and let somebody else come in and do that. So I'm in the process of working with a fractional integrator, which is a kind of a new thing, apparently. So I'm not hiring somebody full time. I'm taking on somebody part time that specializes in this and runs on the EOS system, and that can really get in there and, rather than trying to go do it the slow way and develop the people into those roles, I want people who know it. I want to get moving faster and get further on. But in the past, again, I would take a role and I'd hire somebody and then find out, oh my gosh, they're better at this, and I'm like, okay. And so every time I've hired for, whether it's a hiring training manager or an office manager or whatever it might be, a scheduling coordinator, that rule has changed every single time that I've because I recognize, okay, I'm asking too much from one person if I want them to do all these different things. Really, and again, it's finding out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Are they good at communication? Are they better at being in the background and they don't really want to have to talk to the client? Are they, where is their strength? And so we do a couple of different assessments for that as well, to try to pull that out when we're looking for admin teams. So it's an interesting process. But I've had some really good, strong people, but I didn't do well enough to keep them, I don't think, at the time. The people that I have now, again, my office manager, she's been here almost 10 years. And my other strong admin person's been here probably about 3 or 4.
Okay.
And then I've got a fairly new one that I've promoted up from a sitter. She's been in the office for about a year. So so it's a challenge, but again, gotta let go, gotta try it. If you don't try it, you'll never know. And you can't go, oh, it didn't work out, so I can never do that again. You got to get on the horse again and give it another go, because the right people are out there. They are.
Well, how do you get back on that horse? Because I don't know. I can get, and I know many people are like this, where we get kicked off, we get thrown, we're laying on the ground, dust is still settling on our face. I'm sneezing because I'm allergic to a lot of stuff, and I'm like, why would I even get? What's for you, Joette? Like, how do you stand back up? What's that process like for you?
Well, sometimes it's a quick get up and dust off. Sometimes it takes me a couple of months to really kind of get my feet under me again. It's been a while since I've had a longer one, but I think for me, I give myself permission to have that pity party or to go through whatever that is, because it's like a grieving period, and that's natural. I mean, like anything, it's a loss. It's going backwards, but I really try not to focus on it for a long period of time. I don't want it to be, when I find myself doing it, or it's like when you had a bad breakup and you're talking about it all the time with your friends all the time. And it's all you can talk about because you can't get over the guy or whatever it might be. And it's the same thing. It's like, if you just keep wallowing in it, then you never get further. So it's baby steps generally. If it's something that's hit me really hard, or I feel like, because the pandemic was one of those, it was just, I had to go back, and I was doing full-time scheduling again. I hadn't done full-time scheduling in quite a while. And I was hiring, I was doing everything I was doing. I'm like, I'm back to square one almost. I was like, no, this is an opportunity to really fix the things that were bugging me, to really kind of lay a stronger foundation. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity. It's not a problem. It's not a terrible thing that I've gone through. You can see it that way, and you can live in that. And I know a lot of people that do. And again, I guess I'm more fortunate. I could be a little bit more on the positive side, but I beat myself up all the time about all kinds of stuff in the background. And I'm the first to admit I don't have a clue what I'm doing half the time, but it doesn't stop me. I'm still going to try to do something, and fail or not, there's times I want to quit. I've thought about selling or trying to figure out a way out, or like, I'm done with this. I'm done with people. I don't want to talk to another human being on the planet. I'm out. And it doesn't last long, but I allow myself that time as well, because the feelings I'm going through and the emotions, some of them are very valid, but I also have to put in check very quickly the things that I know that are sending me down that spiral, because you can get in such a deep, dark hole that sometimes it's really hard to get out of. And then can't change the past. All I can do is move forward from today on. And if that means I'm starting over, sort of, then okay, well then what can I do? Let's get excited about that. What does that mean? So yeah, it's a choice, and it's not always an easy one. So I make it sound like it's easy, but it's not.
No, it's not. But like you said, it starts with that little reframe of, it's an opportunity. There's an opportunity somewhere for something, and it might not be, do a whole, tear down and redo and revamp. It may just be tweak one little thing or tweak another little thing, and just finding those opportunities, because that's what allows us to go, oh, now I'm fixing things, and I'm going to build it back better, right? I'm going to make it stronger. But as you said, also giving yourself time to go through that grieving process when you do get kicked off, when you do get knocked down, because it is. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Megan and I, we're rocking and rolling. We got our full team, and then quit illness, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, we're never mind.
You find yourself, when we, oh my gosh, so many times when you feel like I've got this great momentum, and you feel like you've been kicked in the gut because it doesn't seem like it just one thing happens. It's like, multiple, and so how do you I don't know, problem proof yourself? You can't, you can't. Things are going to happen. Life's going to happen. It's how you react to it. If we get a negative client review, or we have a client complaint, or a sitter's, we're having an issue. It used to really we'd all fuel up in the office, and I could feel my neck getting red, and I'm like, just you just have to deal with this fire or this, whatever it might be, and it's like, why am I choosing to look at this in such a negative way? Yeah, I'm not thrilled about this happen, and maybe my person did make a mistake, or maybe they didn't. Maybe it's an issue with the client. But here's an opportunity. I can try to, work this out, and I'm going to be transparent with the clients, do what I can to resolve it. But I'm also not going to go crazy where I'm like, I got a free service for a year. I'm going to put it in perspective. Most of the time, when client complaints, that type of thing, they just want to be listened to. I can tell you there's been so many times that the client's like, I want this and that. And, I feel like this happened. And, I say, okay, sure. Send me the, you want to get your locks changed, send me the thing. I'll reimburse you. They really just wanted me to listen to them and understand and where they're coming from, because it's not that they were, necessarily being outrageous, and times you do have those clients, but they had a bad experience, and maybe something else was going on in their world, and that was kind of the last straw for them. So, being that listening ear and sympathetic, and not trying to make a bunch of excuses, and de-escalate. Is it okay? Oh my gosh, my sitter just, has a flat tire now. I've got all these last minute visits to cover, and I don't have, who am I going to use? And, or so-and-so is not responding. Okay, well, what's plan B? What's plan C? Well, you know what? Looks like I'm going to step in and do it myself, or I'm going to let the client know we're not able to do it. Maybe the client's in town, or it depends on the circumstance, but we're not going to, it's not the end of the world. It's just normal part of business. You're dealing with humans. So you got to figure out and de-escalate it, and not let it stress you out so much, and just kind of roll with it. So, yeah.
And that's where that experience comes in yet again, of looking back and reflecting, of not only have I survived this before, but look, this happened, 5 years ago in that really bad winter, whatever, or this happened. And look, and I think it's important to do that from time to time, is just reflect on, not just, man, look at all those battles we survived, but man, look how we thrived through that. And I may still be and importantly, I may still be the same size company as it was after I went through all that stuff. I'm way more experienced, and I have tools, policies, resources. I have built internal mechanisms for myself to process those, because I know I was way off my rocker whenever I was over there just screaming at people and whatever and angry. I'm not going to do that anymore, because that didn't help. And now I can learn from the past in that way. And now I can actually, that's what it means to apply that to our business, and what it gives people of, I'm better because of that, or we are better because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is, embracing that, because again, dwelling in that negative space, that's a choice. It's a choice. And maybe somebody did wrong you. Maybe it's nothing to do with you, and it's all on that other side. You still have a choice on what you're going to do with that. So, you can't make somebody else be something or do something that they don't want to do. So you have to decide, what you're willing to do. So, yeah, just talking to you, yeah, you're right. Looking back on all those years. So for somebody starting out, or somebody that's fairly new to this industry, I would just probably encourage them to just doesn't have to be in the same industry. Get other business people in your life, maybe it's a friend and they own something different, or just somebody who's got some experience, but also just rely on your experience of life in general, because we all have life going on in the background, So I was going through a lot of stuff in around 2008, 2009, 10 area, just a lot of personal things, and just a lot of, just where I just was, every day was a beating to try to just keep things moving forward in the business or my personal life. And you're going to have seasons of that. And if you feel like I've got no one, that you can find someone. There are people out there that will, that will listen and kind of give you counsel. But looking back and saying, like you said, pointing back to high school, that's a great one, because high school, you feel like, oh my gosh, this is my whole life, this is my whole world. Oh my gosh, that somebody said something to so-and-so about such and such, and I'll never be able to show my face again. And now with social media, oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
No.
Yeah, I tell my kids all the time, I've got one that's graduating high school this year, and I've got one that's going to be a freshman in high school. And I said, this is such a small part of your life. I said, it feels like such a big thing. And the emotions you're feeling and everything's, real, but you have to recognize that it passes. And so I love to point out those times. And I said, remember last year when you were going through whatever you were going through and you were just like, Mom, I just can't, here you are on the other side of it. Just like, so I try to instill that in them that, no matter what it is, time's going to pass. We're going to be dead one day and, life's still going on. So
it is. Well, Joette, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and taking time out of your busy day to talk us through this and your story and encouraging us to focus on and learn from the past in that ways and actually make it very real and applicable to today. So it impacts us, it impacts our business, it also impacts our clients. Everybody benefits from that when we go through that in an intentional way. I know there's a lot here, and there's a lot more to your entire story and everything. So if people want to get in touch, follow along, see all the cool stuff that Park Cities is up to, or pick your brain on stuff, how best can they do that?
I'm kind of old school. It's like website, of course, which is pcpsi.com, which is an acronym for Park Cities Pet Sitter Inc. Of course, we've got a Facebook page as well, and a Instagram page. I couldn't tell you what those handles are, but they're on our website. And honestly, if people are, I have no problem if they want to reach out to me directly. My email address is joette@pcpsi.com. I love to help when I can. I won't promise that I'll get right back to you, but I will get to you because I'd like to point people in it. I'd like to save people to going through some of the things I've gone through. So if I can, if they're open to it, but I'm not a coach by any means, and I'm not looking to coach. But yeah, I love to be a mentor and kind of encourage people.
Okay. Well, Joette, I will have all those links in the show notes, including Facebook and Instagram, so people can just click right there and join on the website and stuff too. But it's been an immense pleasure. I can't thank you enough, Joette. So thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time as well. And I hope you have a great weekend.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to trust. Trust in clients, that they are a good fit for you and will treat you well. Trust in your staff, if you have them, that they will do the tasks that you set before them and will follow your training. And ultimately, trust in ourselves to make good decisions, to lean into our intuition, and to know that we have what it takes to push through those hard times, to find those resources when we need it, and to take care of ourselves as well. Trust in this business is everything. Our clients must trust us. We must trust others. Otherwise, nothing will get taken care of and nothing will happen in your business. It will stagnate and you'll be left in the same place wondering where everything went. So take that extra step this week and make sure before all else and before all others that you trust yourself. That you trust yourself enough to move forward. We want to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet, and our Patreon supporters for making today's show possible. And we really want to thank you for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.